I would say that certainly the black kids who are growing up today have a higher material standard of living than I had. The difference was that the schools were good when I came along.
Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. So we actually got sent a video of my favorite person, which is Thomas Sowell. I never get tired of watching him. I never will get tired of getting videos from Thomas. So thank you guys for sending this. Anyways, I believe he's talking about black culture in America, and you know, I believe I haven't seen all of this, you guys. I think he is talking about like the culture changes, and maybe how it's affected today, what we're seeing today. So we were just saying that Thomas Sowell is my mentor in my head. How we did not know who this man is just a shame. We just now started knowing him. A lot of people just in the recent years.
The average of black kid today, I think, is probably better off, certainly materially, than say Ben Carson was when he was growing up.
Ben Carson, the famous
black
surgeon at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
Who is immensely accomplished in every way.
Yes.
Right.
I would say that certainly the black kids who are growing up today have a higher material standard of living than I had. The difference was that the schools were good when I came along. They were especially good in New York at that time, hard as that is to believe. But the kids who grew up in that same place where I lived, they will not get that same education. Now that can be blamed on somebody, but it has very little to do with what happened 100 or 200 years ago. And it's true in other countries. I mean, in Nigeria, for example, there's a tribe, the Igbos, who are living in one of the least fertile parts of Nigeria, who were in fact enslaved in centuries past by other tribes and so on. When the British moved in and set up schools, the Igbos went for the schools. By the time Nigeria became independent, the Igbos had climbed above the other groups that had been ahead of them to begin with. So, but there are all kinds of cross currents of factors, the particular culture, or the particular geography. You run through the whole list of them.
You cite in Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today. And both black and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Quoting Intellectuals and Race, Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany, and now you're quoting Professor Flynn, grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this the...
No, the expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So they had...
There's no gangster rap that was pervasively available in Germany.
So here's what I'm getting. There is something about black subculture in America today that holds African Americans themselves back?
Yes. In fact, I went into this in a previous book on which about black rednecks and white liberals, because that same subculture...
Let's talk about two of your books here. Go ahead.
Because that very same subculture held whites in the South back as well. That in the time, this mental testing in the First World War turned up, among other things, the fact that whites from various 4 or 5 southern states scored lower on the mental test than blacks from 4 or 5 northern states. And so it really was a question of the subculture that was there, which was a handicap to both.
All right. And so
America's interesting because there is a base, fundamental kind of like idea about America culture. But then we do have these subcultures within that. and we believe as well that it does come from these subcultures. Debauchery, these types of things are not prevalent in other places, but it's prevalent, and not even that, it's accepted here very easily in Black culture. That same, prevalence is kind of going off onto other parts of our own country, where now we're seeing a lot of different white people and different cultures of people in America are adopting these types of behaviors based off of.
Yeah. I was watching, I can't remember, I wish I knew, I just saw this written down somewhere, and I can't remember who actually wrote it, if it was a white person or a Black person, but they were saying that in America, white people do not glorify white trash, but Black people glorify ghetto.
Yes. That is actually true.
And so I thought it was very interesting because, there was the girl Gretchen Wilson, she's a country singer, she sang a song called Redneck, I'm a Redneck Woman, and really haven't heard much from her.
Yeah.
And it kind of does show that, in a way, that white people don't really want to talk about, they like the hopeful part of life, but they really don't want to always talk about the degenerate behavior. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, Eminem had to come to the Black community to be himself.
Yeah.
Right. my thing is like there is a bit of truth in that, that we sort of glorify ghetto behavior and ignorance in all of our culture, and then white people really, although they have it, you don't really hear about it too much.
Well, we also,
and then in that same comment, they said that white people handle their those issues in their community. They don't really put them center stage.
You're right.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
We put them center stage.
Yeah, we accept it, and we glorify it in a way.
I don't know if you guys think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, and I kind of do.
Yeah.
Whose job is it to say, wrong subculture, folks, you're harming yourselves?
Well, I would think in an ideal world that intellectuals might take on that task, but the world that we live in, I've noticed, is not ideal.
All right. What is to be done? Take a look at President Lyndon Johnson speaking at Howard University in 1965.
But freedom is not enough. You do not wipe away the scars of centuries by saying now, you are free to go where you want and do as you desire and choose the leaders you please. You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bringing up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair.
Pander.
Stop it.
It's pathetic.
If only Barry Gold would have won. Anyway.
Yeah,
If only Barry
Goldwater would have won. That was pandering.
Anyway, that was pandering.
It's not a question of, there's no you who has the control to be completely fair or completely unfair. I mean, the circumstances are, so someone once criticized the mental tests on grounds that the tests were unfair. And I think it was David Reisman who said, the tests are not unfair. Life is unfair, and the tests are measuring the results. But who has control of life? Who has control of the past? Who has control of the culture that people have in the present, which they've inherited from the past?
So Lyndon Johnson, in fact, although good liberal that he was, at least in regard, Lyndon Johnson had a complicated career and changed positions on issues many times, but good liberal though he was at that moment, he was in fact engaging in a breathtaking arrogance.
Yes.
On two counts. One, that white people were the ones who were responsible for where black people stood in the race, that it was up to whites entirely. That blacks, as he described, I'm
devastating.
the black people are passive, they're acted upon.
That's right, that's right.
And then the second act of arrogance is the supposition that somehow the federal government could fix it.
Yes. It is staggering. But if you wanted to be charitable, you could say, well, he said this in 1965. But if you say, all right, why are people now repeating it in 2013 when we've had nearly half a century of experience to the contrary. And if you look within the black community, those blacks who had escaped what I call the black redneck culture, they've moved on. So, but it's the culture the different parts of the black community had. They were different.
Daniel Patrick Moynihan, in his famous 1965 report entitled "The Negro Family: The Case for National Action," close quote. Longish quotation, but it gets to something, I believe. Moynihan, the fundamental problem is that of family structure. The Negro family in the urban ghettos is crumbling. A middle class has managed to save itself, but for vast numbers of the unskilled and poorly educated, the fabric of conventional social relationships has all but disintegrated. So long as this situation persists, the cycle of poverty and disadvantage will continue to repeat itself. Close quote.
Right. I mean, this is why we even talk about these things, so often.
The family structure
because
matters.
this family, and we're gonna repetitively probably say this, but it's very important that we get that point across. As the Moynihan report. If you guys have not read that report, you really should. Kind of goes down to this, but the base problem is always going to go back to that. People always like, why are you talking about the nuclear family? It is the structure of our society is based off of family structure. That you can slice it any way you want to. It is, and when we lose in that family structure, it crumbles, as he says. It crumbles, and you start seeing it, and then communities start to crumble because of this.
Yeah, that's basically what has happened to the black community.
Yep.
Is that we started to listen to rhetoric.
Yep.
We started to feel like victims, and we stopped working, and we started to scream about racism when we were advancing. And again, during a time we were considered oppressed, like the Jim Crow era, we had more black businesses, we had more family structure. Everybody went to a church and believed in God. God created marriage to be with a man and a woman for procreation. And then, like Vodi Bakum says, illustration. And so we have completely rejected that by the end of the 60s. We've got the sexual revolution, blaxploitation. We've got, a welfare system that is gone berserk. And then we have, a feminist era that's way out of line. And we've just lost ourselves. We lost character. We lost ourselves. To this day, that was 1965. This is 2024, and we have black people out here still protesting on stuff that they don't even need to protest for anymore.
No.
When Moynihan wrote those words, the illegitimacy rate among African Americans was 25%. Today, the illegitimacy rate among white Americans is 36%. Among Hispanics, more than 50%. And among African Americans, more than 70%.
Yes.
Aside from throwing up your hands in despair, what is to be done?
The first thing to be done is to understand that this was a result of policies begun in the 1960s. This is not a legacy of what happened 100 years before the 1960s.
The breakdown of the black family is not a legacy of slavery.
No. If you the classic study of this goes all the way back to the era of slavery, and they find that most black kids, even under slavery, had lived with two parents, and that was true all the way up until the 1960s. And so, if you really want to find out what's changed, it has changed since the 1960s. And the fact that whites now have a higher rate of illegitimacy than blacks had when Moynihan wrote suggests that this is something that spreads out. But if you look at something else, if you look at those blacks, look at black husband-wife families, the poverty rate among such families has been in single digits every year since 1994. And so if you look at the external causes, why the husband and wife families and the welfare single mom families all are facing the same society and objective things, but the results are radically different because the cultures and values are different.
So you would you would roll back welfare. I guess that's the principal policy. So what would Tom Sowell do? One, you'd eliminate welfare, you'd reform welfare. What would you do?
Roll it back.
All right. And what about affirmative action?
Eliminate it.
Just gone.
Yeah.
Colorblind
Yeah.
policy completely. All right. What prospect for that do you see?
None.
No
At
black,
present.
no black leader of any standing. I'm talking about a political leader as opposed to an intellectual such
Right.
as yourself. You've got, well, there's you.
He's right. He knows. Look, this guy is a realist in my opinion, but he's right. He knows that nothing's going. We're too far into the oppression talk.
Yeah.
We're too far into the narrative that it actually is that you are oppressed because of the white person. So it's going to be very difficult to change that. Now, rolling back welfare and stopping affirmative action, I'm 100%. Look, if any president was running based on that, that's me. I'm like, yes, hire him as president. Because yes, this will eliminate most of the problems that we have. Not all, but it will eliminate a lot of the problems that we're having.
There are things that you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, feminism. I hate feminism, but there are conservative women that stand up for feminists.
There is true, yeah.
Because they want to go to work and they want to do this and they want to do that. And I'm like, okay, but then you can't complain about this. You know what I mean? The same thing with DEI, affirmative action, which, you know, it's the whole ideas, the ideas that have been going on for the last 70 years are just implanted. Some presidents can't even get, like, everyone wants Trump to say that that he shouldn't be for abortion.
Yeah.
But he knows that if he says that, even conservatives won't vote for him.
Yeah.
Conservative women, they're not going to vote for him.
Right.
Because it's been tried already.
Yeah.
In this, you know, in just the smaller voting pools, is that the instant a conservative person says they reject almost, you know, abortion, they don't win.
Yep.
So there's this stuff that's been segmented. It's like MLK being this hero. Even Republicans think that.
Yeah. It's hard to roll that back.
It's hard to roll things back because it's been cemented in our head that these people, these things, these institutions, you know, they just, even if you don't like them, used to them now.
Right.
So it's like welfare. It's going to be hard to get rid of welfare because so many people live on it. And the argument will be, well, if you take these people off welfare, they'll be going to the underground, trying to be drug dealers and things like that. And then you're going to create a big problem with that because now these people need money instead of just going to work.
Yeah.
I think welfare is like slavery 2.0.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
It keeps you in shackles. It's a new type of slavery.
Yeah.
It is. It's a new type of slavery that has a hold of, a lot of minorities, particularly black people, and I do know white people are also on welfare as well. He said shackles, but also what he was saying about the family structure, like even in slavery, he was saying his family structure was intact, and people are kind of moving forward even in slavery. If you heard him say up until the 60s, what happened in the 60s? Civil rights movement. Everything was going, the family structure was, for the most part, majority of people, it was intact.
Yeah.
60s starts getting a little shady. 64, and then we lose it.
I mean, the Black Panthers went along with the women's movement and we call it LGBT, but the gay movement at the time because they needed power in numbers. Two-thirds of the Black Panthers were women, so of course they're gonna go along with the women's movement. You know what I mean? And so that's the same thing now. This is the reason why women's liberation, LGBTQ, and BLM are all connected. They're the same thing. There is no difference. They're all the same. And they do that for power in numbers. If they can get everybody if the liberals can find any way to get everybody to feel like a victim and all they have left are Christian white males, then they're going to win the culture.
Well, because the Black Panthers was very interesting. Because, obviously the Black Panthers, they started off obviously with the black community and trying to get black power is what they called it, going. But the movement, while it took a little bit of a wave, it didn't take enough wave because it wasn't big enough, right? And so what happened there is the power in numbers, as Kara's talking about. They realized that they're going to have to start including some of the other minority groups that are fighting for some type of right? And so they decided to change their platform, and they put out an open letter to the public, which you can read, saying that they are now going to start to incorporate the women's movement into this. And no matter how you feel about, you need to put aside what they said. I'm paraphrasing. Huey Newton. Yeah, put out the open letter, and he said in there that you have to put aside your feelings on the gay people and understand that we are trying to, incorporate more people. And that we're going to have to get on board with them. Now they're coming to the movement. So now we have the black movement, the women's movement, gay movement, of course, all these movements just to get numbers. Okay, so they went against their own standards.
Yeah,
they went against, as black people, they went against their own standards. In order to create noise.
Do you get the sense that there's a growing generation, a rising generation of African American intellectuals who say, enough of this, I'm with Tom Sowell?
Well, I don't know if they'll go that far. There's no point.
That would be asking a lot.
There's no point being reckless. But I think there are people like Shelby Steele and many others, Larry Elder. You can run through a long list, and there are more such people now than there were, say, in the 1970s. But in terms of political leaders, all the incentives politically are for black leaders to blame all problems in the black community on the larger society. And that enables them to take on the role of being the defender of the black community against enemies, which in turn creates the situation in which many blacks don't feel that anything that they do is going to help themselves unless it's done politically as a group. That there's no point. I mean, why would you, if you believe what they say, why would you want to knock yourself out in school knowing that the man is not going to let you get anywhere? One of the most pathetic things I heard in recent years was a young black man saying that, at one point he thought he would join the Air Force and become a pilot. And then he says he realized that the white man is not going to let a black man become a pilot. And he was saying this decades after the Tennessee Airmen had established their reputation in combat in Europe, But the hopelessness is one of the big products of the race industry. That you have no chance. I remember giving a talk at Marquette, and at the end of the talk, among the questions that was asked, a young black man got up and he said, "Even though I am graduating from Marquette University, what hope is there for me?" And having gone through college when I was in the 50s, I don't remember any blacks saying that in the 1950s, when there was a lot more obstacles to overcome than there were when this guy is graduating from Marquette. But you have to produce that kind of feeling in order to serve the interests of those in the race industry.
Final question then. Maybe we can think in terms of that young man at Marquette. Or let's put it this way. Somewhere, watching this interview, there's a young Thomas Sowell. There's an African American who's smart and wants to do something with his life. It seems to me we've already got one piece of advice you'd offer to him is stay away from the races industry. Stay away from the race hustlers. What advice would you give a young Thomas Sowell? How do you make something of yourself as an African American in America today?
The way anybody else would. You equip yourself with skills that people are willing to pay for.
Thomas Sowell is an economist, so his theories and logic is based off of, if you have something that people want to buy or they want to invest in, then you are going to make it in America. That is the capitalist idea of America, right? And so it's not really an idea, the fact of color. It's just what are you contributing to the country? That is what is most important. It is not your race. Again, I know you need it to be your race, but it really isn't. Right. Black people own a lot of things. We have black billionaires, and it's growing, and that just keeps going. Okay, we're doing things. But you would think, by the rhetoric that we're hearing from a lot of black people, you would think that we are still in Jim Crow, or for some people even slavery. You would think there's this, like he said, hopelessness. There's this feeling of they know they're not hopeless, by the way. Let me just say that. These people know they're not hopeless. They just need to lean on the rhetoric, right, to fulfill this kind of well, if something goes wrong, it's not my fault. It's always like that.
Thomas Sowell is a great historian also.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
And that's the great thing about him is that he's an economist, but he's also comes with facts of the past. So he's able to show you that this is what happened then, this is what's happening now,
it's important,
and we were better off then.
Right.
And because he's an economist, he can kind of show you that.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, this just whole idea of just feel sorry for me movements. I mean, all of these movements, the women's movement and the LGBT movement, just took a page from the black people.
That's all they did.
That's all they did. They realized that you can get higher up in corporate America if you cry and scream and whine about your disability. And make it seem like it's a disability. You know what I mean? Keep going on and on and on about it, and all you're doing is annoying people.
Yeah.
You know, and I reject all of this stuff, this stuff that people say. I think it's just crap. You know, even Ben Shapiro said one time that he was like, the problem that happens to a lot of people is that when they're poor, they make mistakes and then more mistakes.
Yeah.
They don't the poorness and the mistakes that they make, they don't learn from them. They just create more. And he's right about that. He's absolutely 100% right about that.
Right.
When you have a child outside of marriage, when you know you don't have any money, and then go and do it again.
Yes.
Now you're having you got to climb out of a bigger hole every single time you do that.
It's an accountability thing, really.
Right.
You know, I was, because he was talking about he talked to a person at Marquette, and he's just like, we're still hopeless. Look, I'm about to graduate from this big university, but still hopeless. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? When we had a subscriber or a viewer write in the comments a while back, although he is in this big like firm that he works at and whatever, and he's achieved all of these goals, he makes a lot of money, he has created his own little nuclear family, right? So he's doing well, right? And within that conversation, he said, but I still am like oppressed by white people. I still, even in my situation, I am still having to try 10 times harder, all the stuff, 10 times harder. And I said to him, I said, so you just gave me a rundown basically of your skill set. You have given me a rundown of how you have overcome some things in your life on your own, right? And then you've also told us that you have created, basically the nuclear family. You're not like out of wedlock with children, right? You've graduated from a great university. You work at a top firm, right? And you're making top money, doing top billings, right? But at the end of this, you still feel, and you are still saying that you're oppressed. I said to him that I believe that you have a form of what I call guilt. It's a survival's guilt, where you made it out of the hood and did things the right way, and now a lot of people are still in this because they decided not to pick themselves up like you did. If what you're saying is true, what you just explained to me is a conservative way of thinking. You just moved up on your own, through your own merit. Your personal life, you did it the right way too. You have kids and a wife and whatever. You did it the right way, and you're living according to you a pretty good life. A standard good life. But yet you're still talking about this, and that's the part that really gets to me every time. It irks me. Because even Kara and I have been through struggles in our life, right? We've talked about some of them, and we do not blame anyone else for our problems except for ourselves. We're not going to say that something went wrong in our life because of I wasn't given the opportunities because I am the skin color. No, that's weak. And like he says, it's pathetic to hear that. It's pathetic to hear that.
I don't believe black people when they say that. When black people say that they're in higher position, they're in all these successful areas, and I'm still. You either you either feel bad that you're out of it, or you want access.
Yes.
I don't believe anything other than those two. That's it.
Right.
That's it for me. Any black person in this country that is very successful and is still running their mouth about, you have more money than white people, most white people. And you're still like Oprah. Yeah. Still talking about it like she's not a billionaire. You know what I mean? It's just like, if you have that kind of money and you have that kind of access and that kind of success, then what you either want is more access and you want to keep the grift going so that you can get other people access with that grift, or you just feel so guilty that you are no longer ghetto.
When you cannot do that and you're blaming others, you're not willing to just admit, hey, I did it. I got out. I'm doing good. Right? If you're not able to admit that, that really is weak. Like, it's pretty weak. If
It's also just extremely ungrateful to be given success and then you still want to complain.
Yeah, you crap on it. When there's people out here who are just on their way up, and then they hear someone like you who's crapping on the fact that once you get to the top, I hate to tell you this, black person, once you get to the top, you're still going to be at the bottom. That's what they're acting like. This is what they're saying. People are too far into that mentality. We're too far into the culture now. This is why we talk about this is why we talk about that. We're so far into it that it's like, God, how do you eliminate some of the nonsense?
And it's such a Marxist sort of way of doing things. I think Yuri Benikov, the KGB agent, he said that in the 60s, people that were in the robes of society, the ones that were in the institutions, he said that they knew that they could not really bring on Marxism like this because most people in America were used to capitalism and so they had to do it gradually. So all of those people, like a Bernie Sanders, they're all running the country now. All those people that were in those colleges, Cornel West, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Maxine Waters, all of those civil rights people, they're all running all the institutions now, including the churches, pretty soon the Supreme Court. You know what I mean? All the colleges, all the high schools. I mean, what's her name? The teacher, Jane Elliott. All of those people from the 60s, they're riddled. And he said they're contaminated. You're stuck with them.
And they've spit out so much propaganda to their students and to people, the masses, and with mainstream media and all this. They polluted. With propaganda. Like, we're in our 40s, and I would say, not too long ago, a few years back, is when we really started looking into this stuff. So that shows you how progressive that the propaganda is, because we should have known. We should have clicked. We should have been on this page that we're on now a long time ago.
And it's funny is that our mom is a Democrat.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even behave like a Democrat, but she votes Democrat because she's mostly black.
Our mom's true.
You know what I mean? And black people vote Democrat. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? So even if you don't vote and you're black, you still think like them.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of it. They don't always need you to vote for them. They just want to make sure they set up shop in your head so that you teach your kids how to be victims, and you just keep doing it. Every single generation gets worse and worse.
Yeah. And like Yuri was saying, you demoralize, you destabilize, and then you normalize. So that's kind of like the way it goes. So once you demoralize a society, you can destabilize it, because now you're not built. It's Marxist. You're not built on any structure anymore. There is no deep belief in God. We've eliminated that stuff. So you're demoralizing people, okay? That's when degeneracy happens, and debauchery starts to take form. Demonic behaviors basically just start to take form. And then that destabilizes a society, because it's broke down now. Now the foundation is rocky. It's not good. And so that's when they get their claws in there, and then we've now normalized. So now when you are clicking onto, or you open up your phone and you see a girl twerking, it's really no big, like, you're not as shocked as you were the first time you saw it.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, well, that's another girl twerking. It's just we're jaded now. We're not shocked. It's because this was implemented a long time ago.
The utopia doesn't work.
Doesn't.
It's not going to happen. The utopia is in heaven.
Yeah.
Once you get to heaven, that's the utopia.
Right.
Other than that, on this world, there is no utopia.
Right.
And they're trying so hard to make you think that it's going to be, women will be able to do whatever they want. Gay people can do whatever they want. Black people can do whatever they want. And we got smash and grabs.
Yeah.
This is what happens when there is a lawless, demoralized society, and there are no rules. You run amok, and you can ruin a perfectly good nation. Doing that. We were watching bits of Jim Jones, the guy who told everybody to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
And he was a socialist.
Yes.
He in the 60s, that whole church, the temple what is it, the People's Temple?
The People's Temple.
He was the first. He was a white guy who was integrating black people in his church and trying to do socialism, trying to get.
That was an agenda,
right? And
yeah.
he was trying to create the utopia. And look how that ended.
Yeah.
But that is how all socialists, Marxists, and communist people end up. Mao, Pol Pot, all these people, Castro, tens of millions of people get killed.
Yep.
Because there is no such thing of that. Whoever gets in power will always try to take advantage of dumb people, gullible people. And America should be smarter than this, especially since we've had a lot of success in this country, but we are just as gullible because things have gotten easier, so now we've gotten lazy.
Well, people who come from those countries, though, like Soviet Union and all these things, and Cuba, the Castro and all, they know better. They're like, look, America's not, or even like a Yumi Park when we talked about her, like they're trying to warn us that what because they're seeing bits of it come in. Communism is happening, here in America right now, and like socialism and these kind of Marxist ideas are seeping into America very easily. And they know what it looks like.
Which, by the way, Angela Davis and Huey Newton got awards from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
They're communists.
Yep. Awards from
Jane Elliott is a communist. All of these people are communists.
Martin Luther King got the award from the
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
She got the Margaret Sanger Award.
Of all awards. And took it happily. Posed with it. Yep. See what I'm saying? This is Marxist, socialist, communist behavior. When Black History Month comes around, does everybody ever just stop to think, why have they never talked about Thomas Sowell?
Or Walter Williams?
Why have they never even mentioned these black men, these black conservative men? They barely mention Booker T. Washington.
Never talk about nothing.
Because he's right-leaning. They never, so this is, look, you guys, this is just it's a ploy, it's a way, it's an agenda to get you to actually, black people, to actually believe that you are oppressed. But I think Candace Owens said this, that if you start to act like a victim all the time, if you begin to do these things and you keep up that kind of rhetoric within yourself, you become your own oppressor. It's no longer like this phantom white person out here oppressing you. No, you become your own oppressor when you play victim.
My very favorite comments come from black men in my comment box that sound like human beings and sound like real men. They'll sit there making excuses for every little thing that happens to them. Real men in my comment that happen to be black that are talking like real men, not talking like little victims that can't, fix their life.
It gives me hope.
It gives me hope. It makes me happy.
It makes me happy,
it really anybody who comes in our comments says, but it's specifically because our community is so riddled with victimhood that when I start to see black men just in my comments being, even ones who are mad at us, but then go back and check and they go, hey, you guys were right about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That even makes me happy. They can still even disagree with me on some things.
You don't agree with everything we say.
You don't have to agree with everything. I don't agree. I like Candace Owens, but I don't agree with everything she says.
You can't agree
Not
with
everything. I don't agree with anything. I don't agree with everything anybody says.
But Thomas Sowell agree with everything he says.
Yeah. But it just is so sad because I feel like it makes me mad to see like if you have a chance to watch Uncle Tom.
Please do.
I have both of them.
Yeah.
If you ever have a chance, though, there's videos of them
so good
watching black people in their time, in their 50s and 40s and 60s, being themselves and being American. It makes me actually tear up to see what we've become. You see black families in neighborhoods going to church together, black men getting up and going to work. You know what I mean? And not complaining.
That was not too long ago, but look in a short period of time where what victimhood gets you. Yeah, it really does break a community down. It really does. And we're here to speak out against all that. We're here to make sure that we use our smaller platform, but use our platform to really talk about things that actually matter, and not blame. And make sure that we understand as black people we have agency over ourselves. It is not the white man's fault or problem, and we have to fix it within our own community. It's called taking responsibility for yourself, and promoting things like marriage and this type of it's promoting the right things, I think. and just stopping this whole narrative with this whole, white supremacy thing. This is insane to me that we can be in 2024 talking about white supremacy. Insane. All right, you guys, we always love listening to Thomas Sowell. He's such a pleasant person to listen to and realistic. Let us know what you think about everything that he was talking about. We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Leave some comments below, and that's it. We will see you guys in the next video.